Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. Anyways, Chris Griffin became a journeyman plumber and was a plumbing contractor for 18 years when a friend at LaRocca Inspections recruited him as a general physical home inspector in 2000. He obtained his general contractor's license and increased his role with LaRocca Inspections, becoming the director of inspector training in 2002. And because of his extensive plumbing knowledge, founded Sewer Line Check in 2004, which proves sewer inspection services to buyers, sellers, and property owners. Chris quickly became passionate about educating realtors in the field of real estate inspections and was able to cultivate a relationship of cooperation and transparency. In 2007, Chris was asked to be the general manager of LaRocca Inspection and later became the managing partner in 2012. And more recently, became a full partner in all of our inspection companies. In 2019, John LaRocca sadly passed away. Chris stepped into John's shoes as the president of LaRocca Inspection and Check Companies. Returning his passion a few years ago, Chris has been educating realtors, home buyers, investors, and sellers regarding property inspection standards, benefit, and protection. He appreciates the light bulb moments he can help create with people for the value and importance of property inspections. When he has downtime, when you have downtime, Chris likes spending it with his wife and family, cooking for his family and friends, and caring for his 3 basset hounds. An avid fisherman of the Pacific Ocean and a certified dive master who relishes scuba diving in the South Pacific whenever possible. Wow. Well, Women's Council, Los Angeles, Beverly Hills proudly introduces to you Chris Griffin, president of LaRocca Inspections and the Check Companies.
Thank you, Jacqueline. That's very nice. Very nice of you. Thora Magnuson was my director of marketing for many years, and she wrote that bio. It's quite fun. Every time I hear it, it brings a smile to my face. So thank you very much. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share my screen with all of you so that we can get into today's presentation. Can everyone see that? All right, terrific. So we are, I want to thank the Women's Council of Realtors, Los Angeles and Beverly Hills for inviting me here today and sharing this hump day and being the educational speaker. It's always a pleasure to join your group, and I always have such fun with your group. What we're going to be speaking of today is the topic of the inspection contingency. And what I've done here is I put together a presentation, a slideshow, basically of situations that can come up during the inspection contingency. And also keep in mind, this can be used for both buying and selling. And you can use this for your buyers and or your sellers, whichever clients you have. I think there's a good information for both in this presentation. So we call it situational answers to help you succeed. Now, I do understand that, this PowerPoint presentation is generalized to your more common real estate transaction. Not so much in a time frame where we have special circumstances in our industry. High markets, low markets, sellers market, buyers market. This is just sort of generalized to all of it. So of course, take that with a grain of salt. Use what you can out of this. Apply it as you see fit, or don't apply it, whichever way you want to do, whatever you see fit, to whatever market we happen to be working in. The first thing is about setting expectations. You as realtors obviously are going to be working with buyers and sellers, and there are expectations that I believe should be set with your buyers and sellers. The expectation regarding the actual transaction, especially if they're new buyers or new sellers. You've got brand new home buyers, maybe they're a little nervous, they don't really understand the process, or how it goes. This is the most money they've ever spent, so forth and so on. So help them to set their expectations regarding the transactions. What are they looking for? What do they expect from the inspections, so forth and so on. Inform them of the importance of the inspection contingency. This is the time frame, obviously, you guys know, where they can discover what they may want to discover in whatever they're purchasing, and or the seller could possibly discover things that they don't know that could help modify the price of that sale, or help the seller in disclosing certain things that maybe they didn't know about, or maybe they wanted more information on. They did know there was something going on, and now they are able to put together a more proper disclosure. Obviously, setting your buyers or sellers' expectations with the fact that many of the homes in the greater Los Angeles area that have issues, whether they be minor to major, basically sometimes people don't know about them, and inspections can make everyone aware of that. And I'm a firm believer. I've been doing this for well over 20 years. I was a contractor, I was a plumbing contractor, I was a general contractor, and I'm a real firm believer in sort of putting things out on the table, transparency, making things known, nothing hidden. It's easier to work with that way, and it can't get you in trouble. And then also let them know that a request for repairs is a normal part of the inspection contingency. As a matter of fact, most agents use the home inspection report sort of as their list to go down and fill out their request for repairs, and that you're going to be negotiating for them on their behalf, obviously in a market that would allow for those negotiations. But typically the issues that come up in a home inspection, typically you would be negotiating for your client on their behalf of those issues for credits or repairs. The buyer's inspection elections form, this is a CAR document. We're going to actually have a quick peek at it here on the next slide. But helping to set the expectations of a buyer as well. Many buyers believe there is a home inspection, and the home inspection is going to tell them everything they need to know about their home inspection. You guys familiar with your CAR documents regarding your contingency period know that there's a lot more than just the home inspection. Your RPA, your residential purchase agreement, definitely talks about the home inspection, but then also there's other documents that talk about other types of inspections that CAR or your brokers would be recommending, and you as real estate agents would often recommend as well. Many real estate marketing ads refer to the home inspection. So this general idea of there's a home inspection. There's at least 37 choices on the buyer's inspection election document. And this is likely a buyer's largest financial investment of their life. You should show them this document. Obviously, this document is going to help them choose whatever further information they may wish to have, whatever they may already have concerns about based on past experiences or something like that. And they will know that there's other inspections that they could have than just the general physical inspection. And then also let them know that the buyer is the one who chooses the inspections, not the realtors, not the brokers, not the insurance agent, not the lender. The buyer chooses the inspections, the buyer pays for the inspections, and the home inspector does not choose additional inspections, or they may recommend further evaluation or additional inspections, but they don't choose them for the buyer. This is a sample copy of the buyer's inspection election document. This is a California Association of Realtors document. As you can see here, it has 37 different inspections on this document that the buyer could elect to have. Number one, of course, is the general home inspection. Wood destroying pests is number two. The termite inspection has recently, over the past several years, has become an elected inspection. It used to be required that the seller provided this inspection. That's no longer a requirement in most transactions. So we live in sunny Southern California. Termites are an issue. This is an inspection that I would always recommend. If the home has a fireplace and a chimney, we do live in earthquake country, and fireplaces can have conditions occurring in them that could potentially be hazardous. For the nominal cost of a fireplace and chimney inspection, I most certainly would be recommending that as well. And we could go on the list, down the list, sewer inspections is another inspection my company provides. The sewer lines are underground. You cannot tell what's going on with them just because the toilet flushes and the sink may drain during an inspection. does not mean that a family of 4 is going to be able to move into the house and everything's going to be working fine the morning after they move in and wake up and take their showers. So this is a good document to go through with your buyer. In this document right here, it does have a statement that says buyer is responsible for choosing the provider and ordering the inspection. If you do not specifically request a particular inspection now, you may do so in the future in writing, so forth and so on. But that's important that the buyer is the one that's choosing the inspection. I believe the contingency period, I believe the whole transaction actually has layers like an onion that you as real estate agents offer you protection. So you've got these layers of protection. And as long as you're using them, in other words, you're not the one choosing the home inspection company or the home inspector. Yes, obviously, you're going to be recommending the people that you've worked with in the past and you've had success with, so forth and so on. But it's a good idea to you can guide and steer. You are the conduit, of course, of the transaction. But it's a good idea to let the buyer and or the seller choose the actual vendor. Because you want to make sure that you're providing your fiduciary duty to them by sharing with them the companies that you again have had success with, but yet you're not the one making that decision. They can make that decision. It's a layer of the onion of protection for yourself. Short contingencies. The contingencies have been all over the board for the last few years, obviously. You as real estate agents know that. The less than 10 days from 17, 7, 5, even 3 days. We had a short contingency just, a few months back. It was a 3-day contingency. We did not get the phone call till the 3rd day. The real estate inspections weren't even set up for the 3rd day. And unfortunately, this particular property had some relatively significant issues that needed further evaluation for those experts. So that contingency just sort of blew up in everybody's face because it just wasn't long enough and people weren't able to work fast enough in that time frame to get everything done. So obviously, we want to protect our buyers in these cases. So realistically, it's best to get the buyer on board to be available, focused, ready to work. Let them know that this stuff's going to move fast and you're going to need them to answer those phones and be available for you and so forth and so on, and be at the inspection if they can be, that way that information moves on a faster line. So questions can be answered quicker, decisions can be made faster. Obtain the seller's disclosures as fast as possible. Seller's disclosures are a great thing to share with your inspectors. Because the inspector, when they're on site, he or she can often look at the disclosure, go to that area, and potentially further evaluate and help in obtaining information. Have the buyer book all the inspections for the same day. If the buyer is interested in doing the general physical inspection and you've recommended a sewer inspection and they agree, or they have just originated that they want a sewer inspection, do it the same day. That way you have your inspectors out there in one little window, one time frame, and you can get all that information as quick as you can. Any further evaluations that may be recommended by the general physical inspector or the sewer inspector or any other inspector, or you as an agent, or even if the client's walking around and they see something that they think should be further looked at, then try to get those all done on the same day as soon as possible. Let's say the general physical inspection recommended further evaluation of a component or of the entire plumbing system. And then there was also maybe a recommendation for an arborist to come out and have a look at the trees on the property. Try to schedule those on the same day, maybe in different windows, maybe one for 10 a.m. and the other at noon or something like that, so that they can work individually with each of them, but try to get them on the same day. That way, all of that is still moving. It's very fast. And then, of course, you as their agent, prepare to negotiate the request for repairs if you're in that market. Visual inspections. It's important to understand that a general physical inspection is a visual inspection. This is not an inspection that we come in and we dismantle or take apart things or move boxes or furniture. We don't pull couches off the wall, so forth and so on. So it's a visual inspection of the viewable areas, of the areas that are open to view. So simply put, if an area is not open to view, the area cannot be inspected. If the area cannot be inspected, its condition cannot be assessed. It's a very simple equation. This picture that we're looking at here is the inside of a garage, and this is often the case when a house is vacated, that they'll move all of their belongings out of the house, making the house very open and accessible for everyone to view and inspect. But then the garage becomes an area where the inspector really can't see the floors, the walls, the ceilings, doesn't know what's behind the bookcase there on the right, so forth and so on. We wouldn't be able to tell if the garage floor is cracked or is there any shifting. You get the idea. So it's very important to please work with your listing agents and ensure that those areas are open to view. Oftentimes, and this is pretty common, we'll come into a house and we'll find personal stored items inside of kitchen sinks, bathroom sinks, laundry areas, and that's inevitable. There's really nothing that anybody's going to be able to do about that. It would be nice if those areas could be cleared out to a degree, at least where an inspector can get in there and get the view of most of the components. Remember, we're talking about plumbing lines underneath sinks, cabinets that may have water damage to them, so forth and so on. So it's not just a matter of opening the doors and, the cabinet's okay. There's a lot more to it than just testing the doors of a cabinet. So as best as we can, try to have the areas cleared out or organized in a way where most of those things under them would be visible or in them would be visible. We've walked into inspections before with the attic accesses located inside the closets of the home, and we can't get into the attic because the closet is just literally packed full of stored personal items. And again, I understand that. It's inevitable. Someone lives in the home for 30 years, 40 years, 2 years, whatever. It doesn't matter. They store their items in the places that they would store their personal items. But it's important that if there are access panels or items to be inspected in those areas, that they are open to view. Also, let your client know the issues discovered by the seller prior to the close of escrow. So it could be after the inspections, but let's say they're moving out and they discover an item. Let's say they move that couch away from the wall and they discover a crack in the wall, what they think may be mold on the wall, moisture on the wall. It's on them then to disclose that to the buyer per your residential purchase agreement. So that's important for walkthroughs to happen when those things occur or when most of the things are moved out. Significant issues. Now this, luckily, fortunately, significant issues don't come up that often on real estate inspections. They just don't. And significant issue also can be a little bit, what may be significant to you or someone else or a client may not be to me. In other words, I have knowledge and experience in handling and repairing significant issues. I also have knowledge and experience in speaking about significant issues or coming up with ideas of how to handle significant issues. So it could be just a sort of personal choice that somebody doesn't want to deal with a cracked foundation or a broken sewer pipe or something like that. But most significant issues, one, again, are rarely found. It's very rare. And two, can be remedied. It's important to understand that significant issues typically can be remedied. What do you do when a significant issue is discovered during an inspection? Number one answer, I would recommend that you be calm. Your client is looking at you. You're the professional. Again, as I said earlier, you're the conduit to this transaction. You want to just sit there and nod your head. Oh, you've dealt with it before. Oh, God. Yeah. Again. Oh, boy. It's just like, just act calm. Act calm. Keep in mind that a home inspection is an opinion. The inspector is giving you their opinion. There's many, many, many different types of inspectors. We're going to talk about a few of them here in the next couple slides. But basically, their opinion is usually correct, but it could be wrong. They could be modifying their opinion or adding information that doesn't necessarily need to be there. I'll give you an example. A general physical inspector is not a trained mold and moisture inspector. A general physical inspector may say some things about mold or moisture that could be misleading or altogether wrong. So for a client to listen to and take the advice of a general physical inspector on a mold issue might set the client down the wrong path of the handling. It might create more of a significant issue there that really didn't need to be, because the general physical inspector is not that expert. So if the general physical inspector basically says, I think you might have mold or there's moisture over here, then let's get that expert in to make the determination of how significant the issue is. So number one, be calm, ask questions, ask if it's a common issue in Southern California. With common issues, there are common solutions. Lots of people having estimates, so forth and so on. Termites is a great example of a common issue. There's common solutions to handling termites. Call me, I'll help you, I'll walk you through it. Oftentimes getting a second opinion from an appropriate expert is the way to go. And obviously do those as quickly as possible. Options can be found oftentimes that don't risk the purchase. Again, as long as you're getting those experts online as fast as you can, and you remaining calm and keeping your client focused and steering them accordingly, so forth and so on. Oftentimes that options can be found, and then everybody sort of goes, oh, good, it wasn't that big of a deal. And that's oftentimes, again, coming from me being in the home inspection industry for 22 years, this is what I see. I've seen these guys, they don't work for me. And to be honest with you, I haven't seen a lot of them around much anymore. I think they've put themselves out of business. I believe that at some point they learned that, a real estate agent is not going to continue to use you if you are continuing to be a problem and continuing to be alarming. Funny story real quick. When I got into this industry 22 years ago, I had just coming out of my plumbing contractor career of 18 years. The very first expo that I went to for our local home inspectors organization, CREA, the California Real Estate Inspection Association, I went to their trade show and their expo, and I saw what I thought were inspectors walking around with t-shirts that literally had the word deal inside a circle with a cross down through the deal. And it made me think, is that what inspectors think they're supposed to do? They're supposed to blow up the deal. They're supposed to cause trouble, supposed to cause a problem. And again, I was brand new. So I didn't want to form this opinion. So when I started, I sort of remained very observant and so forth and so on. And I quickly found out that that's not what the agents or clients wanted. They're not interested in having an inspector blow a deal. They're interested in having real information that then they can do something with. And having a problematic inspector is not who you want. My guys are trained in the art of communication. They're trained in the art of being able to present something that particularly could be oftentimes what somebody may think is alarming or significant or dangerous. And they're trained in being able to relay that information. They're taught how to relay that information in a way that is solution orientated, working towards a solution, not just throwing a problem out at you and your client and then walking out. We're very solution orientated. And again, when you have one of the inspectors, again, the first thing as a real estate agent I would recommend is remain calm and ask if that's a common condition in Southern California. Cracked foundations are a common issue in Southern California. There's lots of different ways to repair a cracked foundation. A broken sewer line is a common issue in Southern California. A broken chimney is a common issue. There's lots of people making repairs. And those repairs vary in dollar amounts from relatively low to relatively costly. So again, you run the gamut of different styles of repair or different methods of repair, having different costs associated with them. So you have choices in how to repair anything that may be significant. Obviously, an alarming inspector, if they were to bring up something and they're alarming, let them know that further information is needed. This is where you could also call me too. Show me the report, show me a picture. I can help you and your client through it. And then, of course, if it does need further evaluation, schedule the appropriate specialist or professional who can do the repairs and so forth and so on. Schedule them as quick as you can. Get a second or third opinion if necessary, especially if you're having conflicting information. The inspector may say something that the general contractor who just built the house says, no, that's not true. Get a third opinion. You know, it's very simple. Probably getting that third opinion might take less time than having those two sit there and argue about it, and your client is sitting there still wanting an answer. And then, of course, negotiate the requests for repairs, especially if it's a safety or a significant issue. I always recommend that I've seen negotiations go a lot smoother when it is a safety or a significant issue. I don't find it very common in most markets anyway that the seller would shut everything down because the inspector found, let's say, a hole in their roof, and then he doesn't want to repair it, especially when it becomes known to the seller by the real estate agents that now that's a disclosure issue. We already have an escrow that's open. We already have a buyer who wants to buy the house. Why not? Let's come to terms, you know, on either credits back or a repair or meet halfway, whatever it may be, to fix this relatively significant issue, rather than possibly making that listing just go dead cold if it gets, you know, pulled off the market. And negotiate, I find it's best to negotiate from a sense of time. For instance, a roof, if it has an average life expectancy of 30 years, and the inspector basically suggests that a roofer come out and evaluate the roof because they don't feel it's in good condition. And let's say the roofer says, yeah, it's time to replace the roof. In my opinion, and this may differ than your guys' opinion, but in my opinion, I don't think it's fair necessarily for the buyer to then ask the seller to put a brand new roof on that now is going to last the buyer 30 years. I think it's very fair if the buyer were to think about it honestly, if maybe they were if that roof, let's say, had 6 years of life left in it, 7 years of life left in it, 4 years of life left in it, would they have accepted that roof in that condition and not requested anything from the seller? I think they would have. And I think most buyers, if they're being honest, would probably say so too. So negotiate on that. The roof is $30,000. Negotiate 4 years of that $30,000 that's supposed to last 30 years. So that would be $4,000. And oftentimes you can just keep the transaction moving forward. I've found that to be successful. Evidence of moisture. This is a very common issue. Moisture is oftentimes the most common issues found are moisture related. And what do? Obviously, a moisture and mold inspection is a wise choice. Oftentimes there may be evidence of moisture, let's say around a window, like staining on the wall or something, and yet it's in the middle of the summer and there's no obvious source of moisture. Sometimes a leak detection or a water test has to be performed. Maybe there's a small little gap in the window's weather sealant, allowing wind-driven rain to come in during the stormy season, and that's where that water is coming from. So it's not common that the home inspector, if there's evidence of moisture, it's not common that the home inspector is going to discover what the source of the moisture is unless it's an active leak or a roof leak or it's actively occurring at the time of the inspection. So sometimes further evaluation is necessary by having a moisture and mold inspection or a leak detection, leak testing done. And again, a general inspector will address moisture issues related to the home, but it's not going to address mold issues. And again, going back to what I was saying before, you wouldn't want a general physical inspector to really talk too much about mold because that's not their area of expertise. Good idea to get from the listing agent. Ask them all questions about the moisture related issues or potential mold issues. Ask them in writing, of course, so that everything is in writing and can be, there's no he said, she said. There's no pointing fingers later in the transaction. Get all disclosures as quick as you can. If you recommend further evaluation by, let's say, a moisture and mold inspection or a leak detection test, so forth and so on, and your client declines your recommendation, please have them sign the buyer's inspections waiver document. This is for your protection. You're trying to, again, just help them through this contingency period and getting the information that you and your buyer need to be more informed so that you can move forward, or whatever you're planning on doing, walking away, moving forward, whatever it may be. But if they don't get the inspection that you recommend, or even if the home inspection recommends further evaluation by this particular inspection, and you agree with that, and you say, yes, Mr. Client, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I believe you should have this inspection, and they say, nah, never mind, I don't need that, I don't want that. Fine, it's okay, please sign this document. It will protect you. And then, of course, discuss the seller's disclosures, as I said earlier, with your inspectors. It can often lead to your inspectors being able to bring together more information that is more useful, more helpful in the transaction. Musty or mildew odors. What do you do when there's musty or mildew odors? You open the door and you can just tell whether it be a vacant or a occupied house, doesn't really matter, but you can tell there's moisture in the air. Please know that any musty or mildew odor is caused by moisture. You won't have that unless there is moisture. So now we have to discover, where's the moisture coming from? Is it trapped inside? Did it get inside through a leak? Is there a broken plumbing pipe? Something like that. But if you're noticing them to be in certain areas, like let's say you walk into the bathroom and it's very musty and moldy and so forth and mildewy, note that area on your Avid. I do know that your Avid is a visual inspection disclosure. Avid, for those of you who don't know, I'm sure all of you do know, is an agent's visual inspection disclosure. It's a CAR document, California Association of Realtors document. And it's a tool given to you to walk around the house, and you just note the things that you may see or sense or smell, and you just note it down on your Avid. That way it's documented, and then your client can decide to do something about it. Refer to the listing agent's Avid and the seller's disclosures. This is really good as well, because the more information that you're able to cipher through and sort of put together, the easier it is to come to an answer. The less guessing there is. And again, you've got all this documentation of this particular condition, and now it's presented to the seller or the buyer for them to decide what to do with it. And again, keep everything in writing, asking the listing agent for seller's disclosures, possible causes, so forth and so on. And then you recommend a mold inspection. Recommend the experts come in and further evaluate that and determine where it's coming from and how to fix it. Again, if they decline that inspection, please have them sign the waiver document. And then, of course, any disclosures that come up, please share those with your mold inspector. This is item number 6 of the statewide buyer sellers advisory. This is also a CAR document, California Association of Realtors. This is very, very helpful in answering questions to your client about what they should do if they're concerned about mold. Now, keep in mind, this is item number 6 in this rendition of the statewide buyer sellers advisory. This gets upgraded and changed constantly. I don't necessarily constantly put the newest one in. So just find the mold section in your statewide buyer sellers advisory, and the verbiage will be similar to what I say here. What it says here. What I've highlighted is basically that the seller is advised to disclose the existence of any such conditions of which he or she is aware. So basically any past water leaks or causes of moisture intrusion or floods or leaky pipes, so forth and so on. And then the buyer should carefully review all of the seller's disclosures for any indication that any of these conditions exist. It is, however, possible that mold may be hidden and that seller is completely unaware of its existence. In addition, mold is often undetectable from a visual inspection, a professional general property inspection, and even a structural pest control inspection. So in other words, mold can be hidden. You may smell it, you may not smell it. It could be there, but it's not visible. Mold is one of those little creatures. So oftentimes the seller can't disclose anything because they don't know anything about it. The general physical inspector may not discover it because it could be somewhere where it's just hidden and there's no evidence. You can't have mold without moisture. So if there's no evidence of moisture that's visible to the inspector or the termite inspector, so forth and so on, you may have a hidden condition. Basically, brokers don't have expertise in that area. If buyer wants further information, broker recommends that buyer have the property tested for mold. This is a great way to help steer and guide your client when they look at the general physical inspector and they say, hey, does my house have mold? And the general physical inspector says, I don't know. And the client, our mutual client, then says, well, did you see it? And my inspector may say, or an inspector may say, well, no, I didn't see it, but that doesn't mean the house doesn't have it. It can get a little confusing, and it can get, honestly, a little contentious. So this is a great way to help steer your client to staying with those experts that may be able to help answer their questions and remedy their concerns. New or remodeled. You've probably seen this, but I would recommend, I wouldn't be tricked into not having inspections because the house is new or because it's been remodeled and it's recently been inspected by the city. I would highly recommend having all the inspections you typically would advise getting. On a remodeled home, or even some brand new houses, the infrastructure, the things that are underground, oftentimes don't get replaced and oftentimes don't even get inspected. We find old, rotting, decaying sewer lines on brand new homes because the sewer line wasn't replaced out to the street connection or the city connection. So realistically, you don't know. Your residential purchase agreement says the home is being sold in an as-is condition and that it's contingent upon inspections. So you just generally don't know what as-is is until you have it inspected. That's how I look at it. It's a pretty simple equation in my mind. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit on another slide, but for the cost of inspections, it's pretty good insurance, no matter which way the inspections turn out, good or bad. Walk through with the general contractor. Always a good idea to walk through with the general contractor of a new home or a newly remodeled home. Have that general contractor show you how things work and things operate, so forth and so on. Please make sure that you get the warranties, the operating instructions for all the appliances and so forth and so on, and make sure you fill out those warranty cards and that anything that is already under warranty is actually transferred to you. It's also a good idea. I like to recommend to my clients who are inspecting or buying a new house, have another inspection done just short of a year after you've purchased the home. The general contractor has a warranty of 1 year on that home. It's complete. There's the manufacturer's warranties on the appliances that are considerably longer. But after 10 months, 11 months of living there, have inspection done. During that inspection, typically the general contractor could be called to come out and handle all of those things under that warranty. Investing in their investment as a real estate agent, and I'm speaking to you as the owner of a home inspection company. I would request that you help me in this particular situation. What do you do when your client says, I want to save money on inspections? So basically, your client has just asked you to please take money out of my pocket because they think this is where they are going to save money on their inspection. I would remind them that this is not the time to save money or the place to save money because I may give them a 10% discount. Really not so much. When on an average, we're finding we're probably able to turn over about $2,500 to $3,000, $1,500 to $3,000 worth of value in that report of items that could be negotiated for or requested for credits and or repairs. Sometimes even higher than that. That's where the client is saving money on the transaction. Asking your home inspector to take less than whatever their professional fee is, I don't know, it might upset the home inspector. You may not get as good of an inspection. Not from me, of course. We will always inspect to the utmost of our capacity, and our integrity would remain in. But you see what I'm saying, though? It could just create sort of a rift already between a client and a home inspector. This is the only opportunity during this period where they're going to really find out what's going on with their property that they're purchasing for X amount of money. Could be a $3 million home. $50 off of a home inspection, I don't think is really going to make or break their bank. For about 1/2000th of the listing price, paying for multiple inspections, in other words, the 4 or 5 most common inspections, the chimney, the physical, the sewer line, the termite, probably mold and moisture if appropriate, is about 1/2000th of the listing price of that home. So it's a drop in the bucket, and it potentially could save them thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on some of these larger transactions. And again, have them sign the buyer's inspection waiver if they decide not to have any of those inspections. The layer of that onion, it protects you as the fiduciary agent. How to protect yourself, help you protect yourself. How do you minimize risk for yourself? Now, again, this is a home inspector talking to you. I am not a legal representative of GLAR. I'm not a legal representative of anyone, actually. This is just coming from my experience. I have sat on an expert witness chair before in lawsuits. It does happen. The real estate industry is one of the most highly litigated industries across the United States. So obviously doing everything you can to help protect yourself is good. Again, it's that layer of that onion. Adhere to your contract and deliver what's promised. Keep things in writing. Don't say something and then forget. Adhere to your contract. Keep what's promised. Perform a diligent and thorough AVID. You guys have been to AVID classes, I am sure. Not all of you may be, but many of you have. There's education about how to fill out an AVID, how to perform an AVID, an agent visual inspection disclosure that is available in your industry. Have open communication with your client. Don't hide it. Don't hide it. Again, I have seen the ramifications and the pitfalls to non-disclosure, and I've been involved in lawsuits regarding non-disclosure of agents on both sides, knowing something and didn't disclose to their client. And it never turns out well. It just doesn't turn out well. Disclose, disclose, disclose. I know that you guys in your industry, you say location, location, location. In my industry, I say disclose, disclose, disclose. When answering questions, refer to applicable documents. This is a good idea, again, because it keeps things in writing. If your client asks you a question about such and such, find that document that answers that question so that you're not then targeted possibly later as being the person who told you, well, you told me blah, 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 as opposed to, no, I referred you to that code or that document or that CAR document or to your contract or to the report. Definitely try to answer those questions referring to documents. The agent's visual inspection disclosure is often used in tandem with the transfer disclosure statement. So it allows the agents to include greater information from their own inspections. As I said a little bit earlier in this presentation, using all that documentation together can outline a better path of obtaining information and making decisions. Your California Association of Realtors documents, typically that you're going to be working with your clients. There's 10 of them here, which are the most common: residential purchase agreement and joint escrow instructions, statewide buyer seller's advisory, which is one of my favorites, agent visual inspection disclosure, that's your AVID, the buyer's inspection election document. We actually went over that document a little bit. The buyer's inspection advisory, seller's advisory, transfer disclosure statement, seller property questionnaire, buyer's inspection waiver, disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship. You're probably very familiar with these documents. In my opinion and in my experience through the years of doing this and what I've been involved in and seen, these documents are often referred to in those cases that end up turning ugly or nasty or into lawsuits. So I would really suggest, I would recommend that you really know these documents and that you actually really use them and get your buyers and sellers understanding them before they just sign away. Refer to the documents, again, as I was saying before, especially when answering questions, the contract, applicable CAR documents, the inspection reports. If your client has a question about the inspection report, refer to the report or refer them to the inspector that then will refer to the report. Have those appropriate specialists answer those questions. Any applicable standard of practice and any California civil codes pertaining to contingency. The buyers and sellers actually have a duty by law under our California civil codes to perform certain functions during their transaction. So they need to know that, and it'll help them understand the transaction a little bit better and what they're supposed to be doing. Ooh, I don't know how long that took, but I don't think it was terribly long. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us here today. I sure do appreciate, again, being involved and being able to share this information with you. I know it's probably a lot coming at you, and I sometimes think I speak very quickly. I'm not sure, but hopefully you're all at least entertained and maybe learned something. At this time, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn this back over to Hiroko, I guess. I think we'll open up for any questions or anything like that.
Yes, thank you so much, Chris. So many information, and we are learning all the time. I listen a couple of times, but it's always very good to know and very important information. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, very much. Thank you.
So now I will open the question to everybody. If you have some questions, please raise your hands or unmute yourself and then chime in. Is there any questions? Anybody? So I have one question. So your company has general inspection and chimney, swear, and mold.
That's correct.
For inspection.
Right. We're called LaRocca and the Czech companies. And you can see in my background, you can see the purple one is sewer, the green one is LaRocca, the blue one is mold, and the red one is chimney. So LaRocca is sort of the mother hen. And we have our affiliate companies. We operate under the same roof. They're under the same management and so forth and so on. But these are the 4 most common inspections on the real estate transaction when you're typically purchasing a home or selling a home, and we offer those inspections.
Okay, so actually myself, if I have a house in like a many forest area or trees, I highly recommend to the buyer to do the swear inspection. So do you recommend to do the swear inspection every time or most of the old house?
Well, I'm going to tell you a quick story. We got hired about 10 years ago to do sewer inspections on a brand new development. There was probably about 75 houses that were brand new. We found approximately 65 of them that had their sewer caps still installed. They never got connected to the city sewer. Oh. And the reason why we got hired to do this by the developer is because the houses were being sold, people were moving in, and within 2 days, sewer was flooding up into their house. Again, because it wasn't going into the city sewer. And this was a brand new project, brand new development. When we came out to do the inspections, we found brand new sewer lines. It's just that they had not removed the cap and made the connection. So to answer your question, yes, I think sewer inspections are very important because I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's say we have a pipe that's this big around, and we have a cap on the end of that pipe, and that pipe is 100 feet long. That pipe can hold about 100 gallons worth of water before it comes up in the shower. Okay, so you can sit there and flush your toilet 75 times. And then, woo, there it comes up into the shower after that. So you've got a family of maybe, 2 moving out and a family of 4 or 6 moving in. The problem that the family of 2 never experienced, because that root mass that was clogging the pipe, the water would slowly seep through it. But the family of 4 that moves in, they're using a lot more water. And then all of a sudden it comes up into the house. So even a seller's disclosure that, oh no, the sewer is fine, is not always correct. So I recommend sewer inspections on anything that I do. Also keep in mind that Los Angeles City, they have an ordinance that requires a sewer examination on any home built prior to 1965. If you're planning on doing a remodel, like adding square footage to the house, that they require a sewer inspection to determine if there's concrete pipe in that sewer system. And if there's found to be concrete pipe, they are going to tell the property owner that they must upgrade or replace at their cost, at the property owner's cost. So especially if you're buying a home built prior to 1965 and there is a planned remodel, a sewer inspection would be very important during contingency so that at least the buyers know that that's going to be an expense that they're going to have to contend with in their future.
You said that is that in city of LA?
City of Los Angeles, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Joe, do you have a question?
Hi, this is Jay Wu with Hyla Realty. Thank you, Chris, for the great presentation. I'm curious, is there like a horror story? Because I find that stories are the best way we retain like what not to do. And is there a horror story you could share that has really caused either a nightmare or some really difficult scenario that came after that property inspection?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for that. Yeah, we've experienced some horror stories. Again, I've sat just too many times in the expert witness chair regarding disclosures and things like that. So I'll share one with you that it is about disclosure. I think the most important thing, as I said, I think numerous times through my presentation, if information is out on the table, no matter how damaging that information may be, at least it's on the table. At least everybody can look at it and punch it around and talk about it and, kind of figure it out for themselves and decide what to do with it, as opposed to information that could be detrimental to a transaction coming out, many years later or after escrow closes, and then everybody potentially can get in trouble. A particular case happened where we were doing inspections and someone, at the time they introduced themselves as a neighbor, walked up to the buyer's agent. The buyer's agent was standing out in front of the house, and this person walked up to the buyer's agent and let the buyer's agent know that this house used to be a grow house. And a grow house, for those of you who may not know, is basically where they're growing marijuana or cooking drugs or something like that. And basically people would come to the house at all hours of the night and receive their drugs and pay whoever was in the house selling the drugs. Well, the agent, of course, nodded their head. Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, sometime later, it was discovered that the buyer moved in. There was no other disclosure about it. The buyer moved in, and I guess the story goes, they kept on getting knocks on their door, and in the middle of the night, wanting their drugs. And the buyer started asking questions as they were meeting their neighbors. And the neighbor just sort of nonchalantly said, yeah, well, I told a woman that when you guys everybody was there having inspections. Well, the buyer ended up suing the agent that he worked with. And the agent basically claimed that, well, wait a second. First of all, how would I know that that person who came up to me was actually the neighbor? And how would I know that what they told me was actually true? Well, the court actually said, well, that's not your job. Your job's not to know if it's true or not. Your job is not to know if that was the real neighbor or not. Your job is to disclose something that you found out during that contingency period. Your job is to disclose that to allow your buyer, your client, to make that decision. So unfortunately, the agent was found at fault, and she ended up losing the law. I don't know how much money was involved, but that was just a simple matter of if the agent had said, look, to their buyer, I don't know if this is true or not, but someone just told me, blah, blah, blah. And then at least the buyer can decide what to do with it for themselves. Going back to a couple of times when I've mentioned during this presentation, then the buyer can decide what they feel is best for them, or the seller decides what they feel is best for them. You guys already have enough to do in these transactions where you really don't need to be making decisions for your buyers and your sellers. But that's one horror story. And there's others, where people do. Oh, I have a great one. May I share one more real quick, please? This one is actually, okay, good, thank you. This one is actually I guess it's not really funny. I found it to be funny. I was training one of my sewer inspectors in a very old area of Glassell Park. It's an older area of Los Angeles. And we had our sewer camera down inside the sewer line, and we were about 100 feet in. We were just past the curb face, entering underneath the street. And for those of you that don't know, the property owners in the entire state of California and most of the entire United States, they are responsible for the sewer line from their house all the way to the city connection. It doesn't matter if it's 3 lanes underneath Wilshire Boulevard. They're responsible for repair, replacement, and maintenance of that entire line to the actual city sewer pipe underneath that street. So we're about 100 feet into this line, just past the curb face, and my camera is showing a broken line. It's broken in half. Now, what happens when a sewer line breaks in half? The water goes into the dirt and eventually starts washing the dirt away into the other side of the pipe. And you end up with a hole in the ground. And now this hole is being covered by the street, so you don't even know there's a hole. So we're debriefing with our client and the agents in the kitchen. And the listing agent was extraordinarily upset at me because he thought I was being alarming. He basically said, does the toilet flush? And I said, yes, the toilet flushes. And he said, well, then there's nothing wrong. And of course, toilet's not supposed to flush its waste matter and its effluent into the dirt under the street. And of course, when I said, unfortunately, that can compromise the structural integrity of that area and create a sinkhole, he just blew up at me and asked me to leave. And I did. I got in touch with my agent and my client later, and I just said, look, this is a actual significant issue. Something needs to be done. We were in the area 3 days later, driving by to do another sewer inspection, and a black Mercedes was sitting inside the sinkhole right where I had marked out the street. And the listing agent was on his phone screaming into his phone that his car had crashed into the street.
That's awesome.
Isn't that awesome?
Karma was like in full force.
Lesson learned, I am sure. I'm sure the next sewer inspector that said, hey, you've got a broken pipe under the street, that agent said, that's serious. Let's get that fixed. So yeah, that's one.
Yeah, sewer is always a nasty one, literally. And that's a common one that we deal with definitely with the home. Most of the homes in our area are in 1920s time period. And unfortunately, the entire city of Los Angeles has to deal with their gas and water main pipes and sewer pipes. And I don't know how they're going to have capacity to deal with the amount of development that they're putting up. And what once used to be air are now 1,200 toilets with 6 stories, and it's all going to the Hyperion plant over in Playa del Rey. So I don't know who's dealing with that, but it's a big issue.
Well, you probably wouldn't want to know that during our heavy rains, we don't treat much of the sewer that goes down the pipes.
Nope.
We actually open the floodgates straight to the ocean because it can't be treated. The sewer treatment plants, they're overtaxed. They were designed at a time when the city was smaller and the usage was considerably less than what it is now. We're developing, the speed of light, and yet our infrastructure is just it's still back in the 20s and the 30s in many areas. So,
and who's going to the beach?
Well, aren't you at the beach right now? Stay out of the water.
In Tahiti, not in
okay, you're
Santa
fine
Monica Bay.
You're fine in Tahiti. Yeah, stay out of the water in Santa Monica. Exactly. All right. Any other questions? Janice Parker has here in the comments that she appreciates that we include them, and she's attended some great training thanks to your generosity. Well, thank you very much, Janice, for sharing that with us. It's very kind of you. And Nancy Isaacs, greetings from sunny SoCal. Thank you very much. Very informative. Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate that. I always have fun doing these. I've got presentations on pretty much any inspection that my companies perform. We did a Triple E presentation a couple months ago, Elevated Elements. Didn't have quite the audience I would like to have seen, but this is a new inspection that's coming out. And I think as time goes on, more and more interest will be had there.
Oh, we have one question from David. So what the maximum liability of the inspector if they miss something? Is there any liability?
That's a great question, David. Thank you for that. The maximum liability, I mean, I'm going to answer you honestly. The inspector is basically under a contract with the client, and that contract is formed by the inspection company. So their maximum liability is going to be outlined in that contract. Now, if something major is missed, then of course, potentially it goes to a lawsuit, and errors and omissions insurance would be used. And typically that's going to be up to $1 million in a lawsuit. So inspectors are pretty well covered in both their, obviously when choosing an inspector or an inspection company, it is important to make sure that inspector or that company is carrying all the appropriate insurances and licenses and things like that. So I would say ultimately the maximum amount is whatever you can get out of the inspector if it has to go to a lawsuit. But typically in my company, the way we do it, I have a savings account that basically handles any small misses or things like that. We've never had to use our errors and omissions insurance, but my inspectors are human. Humans make mistakes. Maybe they miss an item or something. Maybe they missed a leaky pipe, and it's found out later, and plumber comes in and charges $700 to fix the leaky pipe. I'm going to pay for that. I don't care. It's better to have agents who trust that we'll do the right thing, and a client who's happy with our service, and move on from it. But basically, make sure your inspectors are insured.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
When you're inspecting a unit, where does the unit's inspection and the HOAs, or are they included together? Because obviously the HOA's parameters, whatever, affect the unit.
Sure.
Right. So
That's
not
right.
answering it. I'm asking it in a complete way, but you get what I'm saying.
I think I do understand. We're talking about a condo,
Yeah.
or even a townhome or something like that, where there's an HOA involved. Basically, let's take a condo, for instance. Your client is buying those 4 square walls. They're buying that space inside the 4 squares. So that is part of the inspection, and whatever components that unit depend on specifically is part of the inspection. So if there's an air conditioner on the roof assigned to that unit number, we're looking at that air conditioner, but we're not necessarily looking at the roof, because the roof is an HOA or a building engineer component. We're not looking at exteriors or grounds, sub garages, things like that. We're looking at basically the physical space that your client, our mutual client, is actually purchasing.
Wouldn't it behoove the owner of the unit, the prospective buyer, to look a little further and go into those other areas?
Yeah, it would. We always recommend that a buyer who's buying anything in a condo or anything that has an HOA would definitely check into the CC&Rs, right? To see what may be coming up. In other words, the HOA may be planning on replacing a roof, and now they're moving into their unit, where they may have to start paying the HOA higher dues because they're gathering money to replace the roof in a matter of years. So it's always a good idea, beyond the inspection, to also advise your client to obtain copies of all of that paperwork and information, so that they know truly what their expenses, future expenses, are actually going to be.
And what if, I was going to just say, well, what if an HOA is not circumspect in all of those things? What if they're not taking care of all of that stuff, and there are some things that are slipping through the cracks? Wouldn't it benefit the unit prospective buyer to look a little further so that they know what they're dealing with? Or,
well, the simple, and that's actually a difficult answer, but the simple way I could put it is that, simply put, if a buyer on the second floor of a condominium pays an inspector to go do an inspection of the roof on a 10-story condo building, that's not going to benefit that buyer so much.
Okay.
But a buyer on the 9th floor might want to have a little more information about that roof. What the problem is, let's say the inspector is hired by the buyer of the unit on the 9th floor to go inspect the roof, a component that the buyer is not buying, a component that has nothing really to do with their particular real estate purchase. Let's say the inspector brings down news that the roof is in pretty poor condition and is going to need further evaluation by a roofer and likely going to need to be replaced. Let's say the buyer gets further evaluation by the roofer and then an estimate of the roof comes in. What does the buyer do with that estimate? Present it to an HOA that they're not even part of yet?
Right.
It can get a little sticky. What we like to do, and what I would suggest, if that is the scenario you're dealing with, is just ask your inspector to please have a quick peek and comment on the roof, have a quick peek and comment on the parking area that they're going to be parking their car in, or something like that. Do you all know what soft story is, a soft story condition? This is basically, you see them a lot in Hollywood, okay? You've got, or even in the Valley, you've got maybe a fourplex or even a 10-unit apartment building, and it's sitting above its parking structures, and the parking is up on posts, right? So many of these in the 94 earthquake, they basically went plip, the earthquake, because they just sort of fell over because they're being held up by posts that have really no lateral support. They're vertical. They can't do much like that. So when we're inspecting a condominium that's in what we suspect is a soft story condition building, we observe and report. We're going to let our client know you may have a soft story condition here occurring in this building where you're purchasing a unit. We're going to leave it up to them and the agents to work that out with the building engineers and the HOAs, but we're giving them enough information then that they can move forward with. We're going to do the same thing when we're up on the roof looking at their air conditioner. We're going to have a quick glance, or you could always ask your inspector to just, if you do see anything in particular, would you please make us aware of it? I'm a firm believer in a home inspector or any inspector, not even a real estate inspector. Their first duty to their client is to observe and report, period. Even if it's something that is outside their scope, they can easily say, this is outside my scope, though I did notice, and I think you should probably have that further evaluated by that appropriate specialist. And that way, again, we are helping to follow the rule that I like to follow, and that is disclosure, transparency. Did that help, Eileen?
Yeah, great. Really great. Thank you so much.
Good. You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So the David asked one more things related to your question, I think.
I see that. I see that. David, are you a client of mine? Should I talk to you personally? You have something going on? David's question is it against the law or bad practice if the inspector also gives the repair estimates post-inspection or a conflict of interest? In the industry, the standard is the specialty companies are giving estimates. For instance, if a sewer inspector is out there and he finds a broken sewer line, he or she finds a broken sewer line, and it's common that in that report, they will let you know approximately how much that item is going to cost. Same with the chimney, same with mold and moisture. It's not as common in general physical. It's not illegal. It's just not a practice, a common practice. There's so many different components and methods of repair or so forth and so on that you really, in a specialty company, you're dealing with one thing. You're dealing with a broken sewer line. And they know how deep it is. They know what material it is. They know how to fix it. So it's going to be X to repair. In a general physical inspection, let's say you're dealing with a foundation issue. Well, you've got 10 experts that may determine the best method to upgrade, repair, or rehabilitate that foundation is going to be this, or that, or that, or that, or that. And all of those things are going to come with different price tags attached to them. So for a real estate inspector, a general physical inspector, to then just throw out numbers, it's not a common practice. And oftentimes they would be wrong. They'd either be too high or too low. It's not a common practice. We would prefer to leave that to the expert. We are often pressed, though, and you as real estate agents have probably seen it, where the client is like, well, just give me an idea, please, just give me an idea. Tell me what I'm getting into. And of course, the inspector, not wanting to be rude, oftentimes will give the client an idea. But then when they go to an expert and find out that idea was either too low or too high, then of course they blame the home inspector, and that's really not fair. So again, we would prefer that you just stay with your experts for the pricing on the general stuff. The experts who are doing the specialty inspections, they know what those prices are. I hope that helped, David. Thank you for that question.
Thank you so much. That's a great answer, I think.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, anybody, any more questions? Okay, so I think it's covering lots of things, and I would like to thank you so much again for Chris, and then I will send you, thank you, giving him the big crowd. So I will send you Chris's information to everybody, and then recorded the video later. So I think you can feel free to reach out to the LaRocca Inspection, and I think your website has some like an inspection report or some.
There's a free downloadable guide to inspections.
Okay.
Goes over a lot of the information that I went over, and it's very helpful for your transactions.
Great. So I'm gonna send you the chat. So, okay. So thank you again for Chris, and yeah, look forward to do the next one.
Me too.
Thank you.